It's the thing I find most tricky is when people don't recognize you particularly, but half recognize you. You know, it's that strange thing of where they go... and of course that means they stare. They stare a lot.
Rowan Atkinson is popularly known for his role as Mr. Bean, the funny man, the man of few words, the man who could turn silence into pure comedy. He made the world laugh and made us believe he didn't have a single worry in the world. But behind the scenes, things were never as rosy as they looked. There was tension on set, and there was one person Mr. Bean always butted heads with behind the curtain. One person Rowan Atkinson truly could not stand. So who was this person? And what really went down behind the scenes that made Rowan Atkinson utterly dislike them? Join us as we step behind the laughter and into the part of the story no one ever talks about. The untold power of Mr. Bean, how Rowan Atkinson built a global phenomenon without saying a word. Even after 35 years, Mr. Bean still has that strange, magnetic pull, the kind that makes you laugh even when you try to stay serious. Rowan Atkinson didn't just create a character. He built a masterpiece that somehow feels both ridiculous and brilliant at the same time. Sure, Mr. Bean acts like a grown toddler, carries a stuffed teddy as if it's his only loyal friend, and rolls around in that tiny green mini that looks like it could be blown over by a strong breeze. Yet none of that made him small. If anything, it made him iconic. What most people forget is that this global comedy force started quietly in the United Kingdom, airing on ITV from 1990 to 1995. A simple sitcom, barely 15 episodes long, somehow grew into a show that refused to die. It bounced to Comedy Central UK, then ITV3, then ITV4. And just when it seemed like it had reached every living room in Britain, it jumped across oceans and landed on HBO in the US on April 2, 1992. After that, PBS stations picked it up and Fox Family plugged it into late 90s programming, sometimes tucked inside quirky variety shows like Oh No, Mr. Bill Presents, sometimes standing alone like the strange little gem it was. No matter where it landed, people kept watching. Behind that unstoppable success was a simple, almost fragile idea, one Rowan Atkinson and Richard Curtis built together. Tiger Aspect Productions packaged it, Atkinson stepped into the role, and suddenly this oddball loner with the rubbery face became a worldwide obsession. 15 episodes, that's all it took. Co-written by Atkinson, Curtis, and Robin Driscoll, plus a pilot shaped with Ben Elton, they crafted a character based on someone Atkinson had been developing back at Oxford during his master's degree. Atkinson always described Bean as a child trapped in a grown man's body. And once you hear it, you can't unsee it. Every episode plays like a kid trying to survive adulthood with nothing but impulsiveness and blind confidence. The physical comedy wasn't accidental either. The show borrowed the spirit of Jacques Tati and early silent film legends, actors who could make an entire theater roar with nothing but a raised eyebrow or a confused stare. Mr. Bean fit right into that lineage, and because he spoke so little, he crossed borders effortlessly. You didn't need English to understand him. You only needed eyes and maybe a little patience for chaos. During its original 5-year run, the show didn't just perform well, it dominated. The Trouble with Mr. Bean drew in 18.74 million viewers, a number modern sitcoms would sell their souls to touch. Awards rolled in too. The very first episode snatched the Golden Rose and 2 other major prizes at the 1991 Rose d'Or Festival in Montreux. The Curse of Mr. Bean pulled in BAFTA nominations, and Atkinson himself kept ending up on the Best Light Entertainment Performance list year after year. Then, the world opened its doors. 245 territories bought the show. 2 feature films followed. An animated series sprang to life. Rowan even revived the character for the 2012 Olympics opening ceremony, stealing the spotlight once again with nothing more than a keyboard, a stormy expression, and that familiar awkwardness. And maybe that's the magic of Mr. Bean. He doesn't need dialogue to connect. He doesn't need cultural context. He exists in his own universe, one where everyday tasks become battles, where embarrassment becomes art, and where silence speaks louder than any punchline. It's the kind of comedy that slips past language barriers and hits you right in that place where pure laughter lives. 3 decades later, Mr. Bean hasn't aged. He's still odd, still chaotic, still strangely lovable. And Rowan Atkinson's creation continues to remind us that sometimes all it takes to make the world laugh is a face that refuses to stay still, a teddy bear that never complains, and a tiny green car that somehow always gets him into trouble. How Mr. Bean was born, the genius, the experiments, and the moment Rowan Atkinson changed comedy forever. Long before the world met the awkward man in the tiny green car, Mr. Bean existed only in Rowan Atkinson's mind, back when he was still an electrical engineering student at the Queen's College, Oxford. While other students buried themselves in equations and lab work, Rowan was secretly creating a character who didn't need words to make people laugh. A rough version of Bean even slipped into an early 80s Edinburgh Fringe sketch, long before anyone realized this odd little figure would eventually take over the world. But Bean didn't just appear out of thin air. There was a prototype, Robert Box, from Atkinson's 1979 sitcom Canned Laughter. The hair was different, the setting was different, but that same clumsy, wide-eyed energy was already bubbling under the surface. You could almost feel Mr. Bean trying to break out. The real test came in 1987 at the Just for Laughs festival in Montreal. Coordinators wanted Atkinson on the English-speaking lineup, naturally, but he pushed for the French-speaking bill instead. It made no sense to them. He wasn't performing in French. He wasn't performing in any language. But that was exactly the point. Rowan wanted to know if this strange, silent, physical character could survive in a room where nobody relied on English to understand him. And when the audience cracked up without needing a single word, Rowan knew he had something powerful, something universal. Funny enough, even after the first episode was filmed, they still didn't know what to call this chaotic man-child. They tossed around vegetable names. Yes, full-on vegetables. Imagine a world where we watched Mr. Cauliflower. Thankfully, sanity prevailed and Bean stuck. His influences were never a secret. Rowan always pointed to the quiet brilliance of Jacques Tati's Monsieur Hulot and the beautifully clumsy, wide-swinging chaos of Peter Sellers in films like The Party and The Pink Panther. You can see pieces of them in Bean, the innocence, the mischief, and the way trouble follows him like a shadow. Stylistically, the show pulled right from early silent films, physical comedy, big reactions, and barely any talking. That choice paid off. Mr. Bean didn't need translation. He slipped across borders, cultures, and languages like he was built for the world stage. Then came a moment fans still talk about. In 2012, Rowan hinted that he might retire the character. He admitted that watching a man in his 50s act childlike felt sad. And for a second, it seemed like the green Mini would finally be parked for good. But by 2016, he changed course completely. He made it clear, Mr. Bean wasn't going anywhere. Not as long as he still had the spark to bring him to life. So when you look back at this character, born in an Oxford lecture hall, tested on a French-speaking stage, and polished by influences from across comedy history, you realize Bean wasn't an accident. He was crafted, tested, shaped, and sharpened until he became one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. And all of it started with one simple idea: make the world laugh without saying a word. Inside Mr. Bean's strange little world, the secrets behind the man, the girlfriend, the teddy, and that legendary green Mini. Mr. Bean, as the world knows him, is a man who treats everyday life like a puzzle nobody warned him about. He lives alone in Flat 2, 12 Arbor Road, tucked inside his little bubble of tweed jackets, skinny red ties, and that oddly serious calculator watch. He rarely speaks. Sometimes you get a mumble or two dipped in that low growl of a voice, but for the most part, he moves through life like language is optional. His name? He simply calls himself Bean. Profession? A mystery, unless you count the brief moment in the first film where his passport boldly listed Mr. as his first name, and he popped up as a guard at London's National Gallery. The charm and the madness comes from the way he handles the simplest things: swimming, changing channels, decorating, even going to church. Bean looks at everyday tasks as if he's an alien who just landed and decided to improvise, and maybe that's not entirely off. The show literally introduced him falling from the sky in a beam of light, with choirs singing Ecce homo qui est faba, behold the man who is a bean. Early episodes even shot his arrival in black and white, almost as if the universe accidentally cast this strange man into the spotlight. Later versions had him floating down into empty London streets, St. Paul's Cathedral glowing behind him. And in a couple of episodes, he's sucked right back into the sky like he's being recalled by some cosmic force. Rowan Atkinson once admitted that Bean had a slightly alien aspect, and eventually the animated series ran with it, full-on clones, matching plush toys, identical aliens, and a dramatic beam of light sending him home. And then there's Irma Gobb, the quiet, patient girlfriend who truly tried to make it work. She appeared in 3 episodes, often credited simply as the girlfriend. And the way Bean treated her felt like watching a man who understood companionship but completely misunderstood romance. He enjoyed her company. He enjoyed having someone beside him. But love? That connection never fully clicked for him. Still, when she danced with another man at a disco, jealousy flared just enough to show he cared. And on Christmas Day, Irma walked in expecting a proposal. When it didn't come, that was her breaking point. She left, heart bruised, expectations crushed, and Bean trudged on with the emotional awareness of a confused child. Yet even after she disappeared from the live-action show, the animated series quietly brought her back, as if part of Bean's strange universe refused to let her go. A book even revealed her full name, Irma Gobb, and her job as a librarian, grounding her in a world Bean barely understood. But Bean never truly faced life alone. He always had Teddy, his stitched-up, button-eyed confidant with limbs shaped like sausages and a face only Bean could love. Teddy wasn't alive, but in Bean's world, reality bent whenever he needed it to. He bought Teddy Christmas presents. He kept quiet so he wouldn't wake him. He hypnotized him, and the bear's head flopped back in perfect compliance, mostly because Bean held it in place first. Teddy played roles no sane adult would assign: paintbrush, golf club, emergency tool, even a contestant in a pet show. And over the years, Teddy evolved, starting with a tiny head, missing eyes, and eventually getting those iconic button eyes Bean added himself. When filming wrapped, Atkinson donated Teddy to a teddy bear museum, where it later sold for just £180, a shockingly small number for a bear that survived Bean's chaotic affection. And of course, Bean's partner in crime wasn't just a teddy bear. It was that swaggering, bright citron green 1977 British Leyland Mini 1000 with the matte black bonnet. The Mini was practically an extension of Bean's personality: quirky, stubborn, slightly ridiculous, and always on the brink of disaster. He got dressed inside it. He locked it with a bolt latch and padlock instead of the actual lock. He removed the steering wheel as a DIY anti-theft device. He once strapped an armchair on the roof and drove with ropes like that was the most logical thing in the world. The Mini was his pride, his tool, his escape, and occasionally his victim. The first version of the car, a bright orange Mini, was destroyed off-screen in the pilot. Another was crushed by a tank after Bean swapped an identical car to steal a parking spot. But somehow, in true Bean fashion, the Mini always returned, patched up, swapped out, rebuilt, and resurrected. Production used multiple versions, mixing and matching parts like Frankenstein's pet. After the show ended, one Mini went to museums, one ended up in the US, another was restored privately, and replicas popped up everywhere from the National Motor Museum to comic relief sketches. Even the film adaptations toyed with the Mini. One scene had Bean driving it through Harrods, though it never made the cut. Every piece of this strange universe, Bean himself, Irma's patience, Teddy's resilience, the Mini's adventures, fits together like a story that shouldn't work on paper, but somehow beats the odds. Bean isn't someone you understand. He's someone you watch, someone you react to, someone who makes the ordinary feel wild and unpredictable. And when you step back and look at all of it, the alien hints, the failed romance, the broken teddy bear, the indestructible Minnie, you start to realize that this character, born from silence and physical comedy, ended up becoming one of the most recognizable figures on the planet, all without saying a thing. The funniest Mr. Bean moments. You can't stop watching. If you ever want proof that comedy doesn't need loud punchlines or dramatic speeches, all you have to do is walk back into the wild, chaotic universe of Mr. Bean. These skits weren't just funny. They were built so anyone, from a curious kid to a tired adult, could tune in and instantly get it. No explanations, no translations, just pure, delicious, universal comedy packed into moments you can't look away from. And when you revisit the funniest bits, you start to see a pattern. Mr. Bean isn't just messing things up for the sake of it. He's a man who sees the world differently, and the world never knows what to do with him. Take Mr. Bean at the hospital. He walks in with his hand jammed inside a teapot like that's a normal Tuesday. The waiting room is packed, patience is thin, and Bean does what Bean does best, turns a small inconvenience into chaos. He picks fights with strangers just to cut the line, then straight up steals a ticket number from a woman wrapped head to toe in bandages. It works until he falls asleep and she quietly snatches it back. And just when you think the universe might finally let him breathe, his other hand gets stuck in a dustbin. It's childish, selfish, and ridiculous, and yet somehow painfully funny because it feels like watching a grown toddler try to survive adulthood. Then there's the New Year's Eve party that absolutely no one wanted to be at except him. Mr. Bean celebrates the New Year plays like a hostage situation disguised as a social gathering. He has no refreshments, no snacks, and no drinks, so he gets creative. Branches dipped in Marmite become appetizers. Sugar mixed in vinegar becomes champagne. And right before he forces his friends to eat actual bird food, they panic, wind the clock forward a few hours, and pretend it's midnight just so they can escape. It's hilarious, but there's a sting to it too, because the second that door closes, it's impossible not to feel a little sorry for him sitting there alone with his fake party. The next morning, the loneliness turns into unfiltered confidence. Mr. Bean paints his apartment, gives us one of his most iconic disasters. He wants a fresh start for the new year, grabs a paint can, sticks a stick of dynamite inside, and blows the entire room into a perfect coat of white. Except for one thing, the silhouette of the friend from the night before who happened to walk in at the wrong moment to get his hat back. It's slapstick. It's stupid. It's brilliant. And it tells you everything about Bean's logic in one explosion. But if there's one place no one should ever find Bean, it's anywhere near scissors. Mr. Bean cuts hair is proof. Mistaken for a barber, he takes the opportunity far too seriously. One boy walks out with a razor trail straight down the middle of his head. A man leaves without his ponytail. Another walks out with a toupee Bean invented on the spot. And somehow, between the chaos, Bean even manages to impersonate Prince Charles like that's the natural next step. It's comedy in its purest form, simple problem, ridiculous solution, escalating consequences. And then comes the moment the whole country holds its breath. Mr. Bean meets the Queen. He's in line, trying his best to look presentable, which for Bean means hiding a mouth freshener, like it's contraband, and flossing with a string from an apron. It all ends the only way it possibly can, with him accidentally headbutting the Queen. The skit is short, almost frustratingly short, but that's the magic. It feels like a hit and run, fast, chaotic, and unforgettable. One of his absolute classics is Mr. Bean Takes an Exam, where physical comedy is the entire backbone. Bean strolls in confident, sits down, opens the paper, and realizes he knows absolutely nothing. What follows is a desperate, flailing hunt for answers, with him stretching, peeking, twisting, and practically folding himself into origami just to see the other guy's paper. And when the exam ends and he discovers the correct paper was in front of him the whole time, he tries to cram the entire thing into 2 minutes. Failure has never been funnier. Then comes a moment we've all lived through, ordering food we can't stand and pretending everything is fine. In Mr. Bean Doesn't Like the Food, He's faced with a steak he simply cannot swallow. So he starts hiding pieces everywhere, under his plate, in bread rolls, into someone's trousers, on the floor, in a plant, anywhere except his mouth. But when the waiter trips and spills the plate onto him, revealing every hiding spot at once, Bean is forced into polite humiliation. And as payback, they bring him a fresh steak. Comedy gold. Mr. Bean at the church taps into another universal experience, trying not to fall asleep in the wrong place. He battles grogginess, boredom, a stern man watching his every move, and a single piece of candy he can't seem to eat without causing a scene. At one point, he rubs his nose in his pocket lining, then slips the candy inside that same pocket, unknowingly sentencing his sweet to a lint-filled grave. It's the kind of awkwardness you feel in your spine. And then, we get Mr. Bean Plays Golf, a masterclass in how far one joke can go. He hits a ball in mini-golf, it rolls out of the course, and Bean chases it across town. Rooftops, streets, sewers. This man treats the ball like it carries the meaning of life. The ending is pure perfection. After all the chaos, it took Bean more than 1,000 shots to finish the hole. Commitment at its finest. But the crown jewel is Mr. Bean does his laundry. Everything just clicks. The bully who instantly steals Bean's washing powder. Bean wearing a skirt without missing a beat. Teddy shrinking down to pocket size is somehow adorable and heartbreaking at the same time. It's the skit that balances chaos, comedy, pacing, and charm so well that you can't imagine it being done any better. Nobody talks much, but the story speaks louder than any dialogue ever could. And just when you think the madness is contained in live action, it seeps effortlessly into the animated world, where the antics evolve, but the chaos never dies. The Toxic Trio. Inside Mr. Bean's wild war with Mrs. Wicket and Scrapper. In the animated world of Mr. Bean, Mrs. Julia Wicket is the sharp-edged force that keeps Bean on his toes. She's his landlady, his accidental guardian, and his biggest headache rolled into one stiff, cranky package. Everyone in that house knows the rules, but no rule is louder than this one. Don't mess with Scrapper, her one-eyed, battle-scarred, permanently furious Persian cat whom Bean once gave away as a child. She never forgot that, and neither did Scrapper. Mrs. Wicket lives in a constant tug-of-war with Bean. She can't stand him, not since he ruined her wedding as a kid, yet she still lets him live upstairs. But it comes with conditions. One she likes to change whenever she feels like it. If he annoys her even slightly, she's ready to swing her cane, bark orders, or evict him outright, as she does in Homeless, Dead Cat, and The Fly. And no matter how dramatic the eviction, Bean somehow slips back into the apartment by the next episode, as if they're stuck in an endless cycle neither can escape. In her darker moments, Wicket treats him less like a tenant and more like free labor. She turns him into her servant in A Royal Makeover, sends him running errands in Super Trolley, and snaps at him whenever he steps out of line. But she isn't all fire. By the newer seasons, her temper simmers a bit and she doesn't explode unless Bean really earns it, usually by being loud, reckless, or taking her things without asking. And every now and then, Wicket reveals a soft patch she pretends she doesn't have. She once threw him a birthday party. She defended him during a wrestling fiasco involving Bruise Force. She handed him a pie and all-you-can-eat when he looked like he had reached his limit. And she admired his efforts in Superhero Bean, where he spent the day returning stolen wallets and photos to the neighborhood. Moments like that don't last long, but they do show she doesn't completely hate the man upstairs. While Wicket is busy juggling irritation and reluctant kindness, Scrapper has no such confusion. The cat hates Bean with a passion that burns brighter than anything else in the house. Every scar on his body, the missing eye, the torn ear, the chunk missing from his tail, is matched by a personality that's sharp, mean, and always ready to strike. He claws, bites, sabotages, and smirks when Bean gets caught doing something wrong. In Young Bean, he deliberately knocked a plate off the table just to alert Wicket that Bean was up to no good. But the rivalry isn't absolutely one-sided. Even Scrapper shows slivers of mixed feelings. He snarls at the mime following Bean in mime games, almost like he's warning him. And in Cat Chaos, he willingly lets Bean rescue him from the sewers, working together for the briefest moment before snapping back into full hostility once the danger passes. Bean doesn't stay innocent in this fight either. He torments Scrapper whenever Wicket isn't looking, pushes his buttons, and sometimes nearly gets the cat hurt without meaning to. Their feud is chaotic, petty, and strangely balanced, each one fully committed to making the other's day just a little worse. Through all the drama, one thing stays unshakable. Wicket will always defend Scrapper over Bean. The second her cat yelps, she's already charging upstairs, ready to unleash fury. Scrapper knows it, Bean knows it, and that imbalance is the heartbeat of the house. So the dynamic stays locked in place. Wicket rules the home. Scrapper strikes from the shadows and Bean stumbles through the chaos. But while fans laughed at the chaos on screen, a different battle was brewing behind the scenes. Mr. Bean truly hated him, and Rowan Atkinson finally admitted why. For years, fans assumed Mr. Bean's biggest battles played out on screen with Scrapper, Mrs. Wicket, or whichever unlucky stranger crossed his path. But behind the scenes, Rowan Atkinson carried a very different struggle, one that grew so heavy, he openly admitted that playing Mr. Bean drained him to the bone. In his own words, the character didn't just tire him out. He stressed that the entire process felt stressful and exhausting, a burden he couldn't wait to escape. If Mr. Bean hated anyone, it wasn't a castmate. It was the man who created him. Rowan Atkinson, now 70, is still shaping the character's future, right in the middle of developing a brand new animated film. But even while moving the franchise forward, he made it clear that the experience no longer brings him joy. He expressed that he finds the weight of responsibility not pleasant, and admitted that he doesn't much enjoy playing him anymore. This fatigue didn't appear overnight. Atkinson had worn the suit, tie, and confused stare through the original series from 1990 to 1995, then revived the character for Bean, the movie in 1997, and later Mr. Bean's Holiday in 2007. Each return brought success, but also more pressure. Pressure that grew heavier every time he stepped back into Bean's silent, physical comedy. In one of his clearest confessions, Atkinson explained that he doesn't much enjoy playing him, and repeated that the weight of responsibility is not pleasant. He shared that he finds the role stressful and exhausting, and revealed that he always looks forward to the end of it. That exhaustion wasn't just physical, it came from the responsibility of carrying a global character almost entirely on his own shoulders. During an interview with Radio Times, he went deeper, revealing that moving Mr. Bean into animation was a relief. He described that performing the character vocally is far easier than doing it visually, calling the animated version a much lighter process. He also repeated the same emotional weight, that he doesn't enjoy playing him, that the pressure built around this character is far from pleasant, and that he looks forward to the moment he can drop it all. Then came the line that revealed just how alone he had felt in the creative process all these years. Atkinson shared that he doesn't enjoy making anything, with the possible exception of Blackadder, a show where the responsibility for the comedy was shared by many, not carried entirely by him. With Mr. Bean, that weight was his alone. Even with all that pressure, Atkinson never doubted the character's global reach. He expressed that Mr. Bean's success never shocked him. In his words, watching an adult behave in a childish way, completely unaware of his own ridiculousness, is fundamentally funny. And because the humor is visual rather than verbal, he felt it made perfect sense why the character became an international phenomenon. So while the world connected with Bean, laughed with him, quoted him, and adored him, the man behind the character carried a different truth. Mr. Bean brought joy to millions, but to Rowan Atkinson, the character became a load so heavy he could no longer pretend it didn't wear him down. In the end, the real conflict wasn't on screen. It lived between creator and creation, a silent tension that made Rowan Atkinson admit what fans never expected. Mr. Bean didn't just exhaust him, He was the one character he could no longer wait to walk away from. Which Mr. Bean episode is still your favorite to this very day? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.